My name is David O'Reilly, and I'm the London Director for the British Irish Chamber of Commerce and Commend. Absolutely delighted today to be joined for this interview to coincide with International Women's Day with one of our esteemed members in the British Irish Chamber of Commerce and Commend, Valerie Nestor, the founder and CEO of Nest Relocations. Valerie, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us as we approach International Women's Day 2021. If I could invite you maybe just to start things off, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what Nest Relocations is all about as a business?
Sure. Thank you very much for having me, David. I really appreciate it. So I'm Valerie Nestor. I'm from Dublin, and I studied in Bolton Street, and have always really loved property, but didn't know, what direction to go in necessarily. And the long and the short of it is I followed a few routes. I tried and tested a few avenues, and when I felt that they weren't the right avenues to pursue, I changed and I moved on, and eventually I found myself in London in the residential sector, and in 2016 set up Nest Relocations, which is a property search company for those needing assistance with buying or renting property. And I can't believe it, but that's 5 years ago now.
And I imagine quite a few lessons learned and insights gained along the way, which is one of the reasons. It's one of the reasons why we're so pleased to have you doing this interview with us today. And in terms of some of those lessons you've learned and insights you may have gained, what would you feel are some of the strategies that can help women achieve a more prominent role within their organizations? And is there any sort of one big sort of leadership lesson you've taken away from founding and setting up Nest and growing it?
Yeah, so in terms of strategies, I would say for women, it just ignore the doubts. Basically, I mean, that's the biggest strategy. It's, they are fictional. They're not real. They're not reality. They're literally thoughts in your head that aren't reality. And if you ignore the doubts and just keep moving forward, it will never be a mistake. And the other strategy, really, I mean, it's quite simple. It's just work hard, put your head down, work hard, and make yourself valuable within the company, the enterprise, wherever it is you are. And then you'll find yourself in a position to negotiate the best terms that are suitable for you. The other thing I would say is set your boundaries, know your worth, and set your boundaries, and know what you're willing to accept and what you're willing to give, because that will really make you think about what's going to make you happy, and whatever ends up making you happy, you'll be successful in.
And in terms of the workforce, both in your own company and also within the various companies and customers and counterparties that you obviously interact with each week in Nest, like, why would you say having a good gender balance is important, a more diverse workforce, especially in senior management teams? What would you see as the key reasons why that's important in business and a good thing in business?
Yeah, well, I think too much of anything is probably never a good idea. So and just obviously focusing on the gender balance side of things, it just gives more, it creates a bigger talent pool. It therefore creates much more different perspectives. It also cultivates an environment of inclusivity. Whereas if you just have predominantly male, board members, or predominantly female board members, it actually, works both ways. First of all, it's terrifying, and it certainly isn't inviting to the other sex to feel like they are welcome. So definitely inclusivity, and then the benefits as well is clients want to see that you have a gender balance. They want to see, because if you have a gender and diversity balance within your company, there's going to be, you're going to open up the possibilities of communication with all your clients, with all the potential clients out there, and they'll feel there's no doors closed to them. So
absolutely,
yeah.
And I imagine it's quite important from a staff recruitment and morale perspective as well, for staff to see that it's a diverse workforce and there's lots of different views and people with different backgrounds and different experiences that they can bring to the table, exactly. which I think is a very important thing. Have you, as a founder of a business, as a female founder of a business, have you experienced any, has there been any one significant barrier in your career that's been due to the fact that you are a female founder? Is there anything you've ever run up against that you'd be able to share with us? Any specific issues or pain points, or has it just not been an issue?
I would honestly say my own limiting thoughts. Like I can't really blame external factors, but they are thoughts that you have. That's just fear, basically. And once you take that first step, like the first step for me, starting to eliminate the limiting thoughts, was actually setting up my own company. That was probably the most terrifying thing I ever did. And but I didn't die the next day like I felt I was going to, when the day before I had no company, and then next day I had a company, and the world was still turning and everything was fine, and nothing happened. There was no catastrophe that I had imagined in my head. And so that really helped me pave the way forward for any time a fear came into my mind. I actually saw it as a sign that it was something I should do, I should pursue. If you're afraid of it, it generally means it's going to end up, in your favor. If you take the courage to do it. And something, if it doesn't end up in your favor, it's even more beneficial sometimes, because you have a massive learning curve from all of your mistakes that you make. And that's how you get your confidence. There's no shortcut. There's literally no shortcut. And so that's what I would find.
I think believe in yourself is the sort of the watchword that I'm taking away from our the first half of our discussion. We'll come back to the second half in shortly. But thank you so much, Valerie. Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Valerie, if I can come to a question I have for you around what's called commonly imposter syndrome. Have you ever sort of experienced any feelings of self-doubt, imposter syndrome, and so on? And how have you overcome them?
I have, and I think probably most women, and to be fair, I'm sure a ton of male counterparts as well. I think a lot of people feel that way, but I just overcome it by just saying, everyone's winging it in life. You just have to keep moving forward. Stop the negative thoughts. Don't entertain them. They're counterproductive. Just ignore them and put one step in front of the other and just keep moving forward.
And I imagine the support of loved ones, friends and family is very important in that equation as well, especially when setting up a business, to have that sort of unconditional support. And I know that from my own experience in London, from my own experience. What would you view as the biggest challenge for the next generation of women in business coming up through the ranks now, Valerie?
I think the pressure to be perfect, honestly, because this next generation coming up, there's so much social media pressure, and also so much online advice that you're almost expected to absorb everything and start perfectly. But that's just not how it works. It doesn't, on paper, it sounds great. Oh my God, I can leapfrog all the mistakes. I can leapfrog, I'll just learn, you know, from the people who have succeeded and just take on board what they've done, and then I'll be fine. But that's not personal, and that's not reality. And social media can be a bit of a trick of reality as well. And I think it's important to have your own journey and not just try and imitate other people's, you know, journeys. You have to take your own journey, because that's how you succeed. So
Absolutely.
I do feel the pressure will be there in that regard. But if they have, you know, a good support network, as you mentioned, and if they take time to breathe and realize that it is a journey, you know, to get to where you want to be, you know, the journey is where you want to be. It's not an end result necessarily, but, you know, that's the main thing to take on board.
Are there any, you've actually touched on some of them just now, but are there any specific bits of advice or any specific sort of hints or pointers you would give to the next generation of women in business? I mean, you've mentioned about the social media and so on. Do you think maybe people need to take a step back from some of that?
I think the most important thing is to find a mentor. Finding a mentor isn't a new concept. It's been around for generations and generations. People have learned from, you know, a superior of some form of sort. But I don't know if going out there actively sourcing a mentor, I think that's a kind of a relatively new concept. When I say new, I mean the last, you know, whatever, 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
And I've gone out and I've found I have one mentor that has kind of organically, you know, I've attached myself to them organically, and then another mentor, I literally actively went out, didn't know the person from Adam. I just you know, followed them on some of their YouTube teachings, and
right.
And reached out to them, and they have been fantastic for me. So, and I don't think it stops it necessarily at any age. I think you have to keep your mind open to learning and learn from wiser, you know, not necessarily older. Sometimes it's younger generation.
Yeah.
You know, so
it's having a fresh perspective, I think is one of the most valuable things a mentor can bring to the equation.
Exactly.
How do you think we as a society can do more and be a better support system to women in business and female business owners? Is there anything you think we could do and improve as a society, not just the business community, but the general community?
I think one of the things is, it sounds kind of basic, but just to support each other. And I have found that in the last 1 to 2 years, there has been this big push socially to support your female peers. And yeah. I think that's wonderful, because I think there might have been a bit of a habit in the past of maybe seeing people as other women as competition, but that's just not the case. It's not the case. You know, you have to, well, without sounding too corny, you have to lift each other up, like, but that's, yeah, it also goes for, it's not just female to female, that goes for all your peers, you know, and it's not because you're getting anything out of it. It's not for self promotion, but it's just to be a community.
it also, you know, it's good business. It makes good business sense as well, because, you know, by helping each other more, people's companies will thrive, and individuals will thrive and do better in the organization that they're working in. So I think that's a very positive thing. Is there any specific one woman who inspires you particularly that you would single out, and why?
So I have been thinking about this, and I realize that it's really, really difficult to pick one woman.
Just one, yeah.
And I have, you know, you go through the globally recognized influential women like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, you know, Rosa Parks, Beyonce, even for me, you know, I grew up when she came on the scene, and really powerful, influential women. But actually, when I really thought about it, it's closer to home. My mother, my sister, even my niece, you know, she's a good bit younger than me, obviously, but she has this anything can happen attitude, anything is possible attitude. And I think us older generation need to be reminded sometimes of that, because we can be a little bit tarnished maybe by by I don't know. It's just nice to have a fresh influence from any age group. But I have to say, who I think is just phenomenal is Hazel Chu, the Dublin City Lord Mayor. I mean, I just think
yes.
she is. I'm actually blown away. I think she's a rock star. I actually am blown away by her. She is such she's so, like, she worked so hard to get to where she is, and she even worked in, you know, Electric Picnic, and she has done everything. She's traveled, she's created a family, she's come up against massive prejudices in Dublin, in Ireland, should I say, you know, growing up in Ireland in the 80s. And yet she's still so welcoming, so open-minded, and so sound. She's just so down to earth. And I think she's a phenomenal influence on all the younger female generation.
Oh, absolutely. Well chosen. Very well chosen. I couldn't agree more. We spoke a few minutes ago, Valerie, about mentors and sponsors. In terms of the founding of Nest, and as you've grown that business and developed it to where it is, has there been any, you know, specific area where mentors have been particularly helpful in terms of the importance of mentors? We've already touched on this a few minutes ago, but has there been any specific area, like getting the company started or fundraising or finding that first customer? Has there been any area where mentors have particularly been useful?
I think at the beginning, in starting the company, I've had mentors to just give me the confidence, just to say, these are your skills, these are your capabilities, remember them, and just do it. And like, literally just say to me, just do it. Stop second guessing. Stop, you know, it's just that, it's just the support. So, and mentors, they would be business mentors, you know, so it's not, I'm not necessarily talking about, you know, my family, or, you know, that is a support system that you need. But in terms of, for Nest Relocations, I needed someone who was long in the tooth, in terms of had a lot of wise words in setting up a business, and that in turn then promoted, you know, to grow my confidence as well.
Excellent. Well, I think that's a key takeaway from this discussion, is the importance of having good mentors as you progress through life and setting up companies and growing them. I'd like to finish up with the following question, if I may, Valerie. How important is the support of male colleagues in promoting gender diversity, and have you had any particular, you know, ones you would single out in your own mind as where people really supported you and played an instrumental role in getting to where you are today?
I think it's vital. I think it's absolutely vital. I started my career in commercial property, and I spent some time in commercial property investment, and I often turned up at places, you know, random places, at, you know, networking events or whatever, and I'd be the only female, and it was terrifying. It was terrifying, and it didn't, you know, make me feel like I was welcome there, you know, and I felt I had to work that much harder. But I had fantastic male colleagues and peers. And just, you know, some in particular that I'd remember is I lived in Melbourne for a time, and my first job there, I worked for a residential property valuing company, and it was a really dynamic young company. The two bosses were male. All the valuers were male. There was 20 valuers, they were all male, and all the support staff were female. And I joined as a valuer. So I was the only female valuer in this company. But there was not a moment did I feel like the odd one out, not for a second, because it was the personalities that were there, and they were so, listen, you're one of us. Like, it wasn't even a topic of conversation whether, you know, I was not invited, whether I was or wasn't invited to social activities or whatever. And what we had in common is that we worked really hard and we had lots of fun, and it didn't matter whether I was female or male or vice versa. And the two male directors, they were fantastic. They were just really promoted me and really gave me the confidence and really included me. And so that was in my early 20s. And so that was a massive influence, and realization that it doesn't necessarily, that it is important that you feel welcome, and that it's about the individual, not necessarily the gender.
Well, Valerie, I have learned a lot today, and
Good.
I think the insights you've shared with us, some of the lessons that you've shared with us, and some of your own experience that you've been able to open up to us about and share with us, it's been truly fascinating. I've greatly enjoyed interviewing you and having this discussion. My thanks to you. We're absolutely delighted to have you as a member of the British Irish Chamber of Commerce and as a member on Commend, and a very active member in both organisations. I'd just like to thank everyone who's joined us today. We hope that you've enjoyed the discussion. It's been my pleasure to host and to interview Valerie, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. And can I just say thank you, Valerie, once again, and take care, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, David. Take care.